Hey, first and foremost, thank you for having World Combat Sports on and speaking with me. I just want to take it back a little bit on what initially gravitated you to the sport of martial arts.
Well, it goes back to basically as a kid, before I started boxing amateur and professionally, it was schoolyard stuff. And when I heard about this, it kind of took me back to my schoolyard days where two guys settled their differences bare knuckle back then, and kind of stuck with you. Never thought we'd see it again, but then the Feldmans went hard to work about 8 or 9 years ago and never gave up on the concept.
What initially motivated you to join? What was your first combat sports genre that you actually took up as a sport?
Well, wrestling in high school, and then when I went in the Marine Corps, I did what they call smoking. You're familiar with that, I'm
Correct.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And after a little smoking, when I got out the Corps and stuff, I became a boxer and went amateur and pro for a while. And, and always wondered what it would be like to go back to that schoolyard type stuff, Naturally got very involved in MMA and stuff like that as far as the judging and stuff like that.
So where have you been as far as your experience goes, as far as judging? I know you said you had an amateur and professional boxing career. How long you been judging the sport of MMA and boxing around the world?
I've been doing boxing for about 20 years. MMA, Muay Thai, and kickboxing for the last 5 or 6 years here in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut.
Were you initially on the wave to basically surface the effort? I understand that they tried at 28 sanctioning, to get this regulated bare knuckles fighting. Were you initially with that effort or not?
No, that was strictly the Feldmans. My contact with them came through the MMA. They were promoters in MMA as well here in Pennsylvania. That's where I got to meet both Dave and Dave Jr.
Okay.
And they talked a little bit then about their efforts for the bare knuckle. And I said, well, if it ever comes about, it's something I'd definitely be interested in.
So how long exactly have you been with bare knuckle fighting?
Well, since its inception in Cheyenne back in May.
All right.
That was our first legal sanctioned fight in 120 some years here in the States.
It kind of takes me back there, Mr. Goldsmith, of when UFC 1 just touched bases, and everybody was frowning upon it. But now I think the combat sport community is a little bit more acclimated to seeing this type of sport. Do you see more MMA or boxers coming over to bare knuckle fighting once they feel that that particular sport is not going to be something they pursue long term?
It definitely what it is too. I mean, we're getting a lot of guys from the UFC. Guys have been Bellator, K1, stuff like that. And when we put out initial word that we're looking for some bare knuckle fighters, I'm not kidding. We literally got into thousands of applications.
Oh, wow.
For it. I mean, naturally, some guys had to be ruled out. We do want you to have at least a few pro fights in boxing or MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So some people were amateurs or backyard brawlers or tough men, and we have to rule them out.
Yeah, I like what's going on with bare knuckle fighting in the sense that it is a different type of genre. And it provides those fighters like Beck Rollins, who I followed ever since she came up through the Ultimate Fighting House, right? And she went into the UFC, and she did fairly decent. But now in bare knuckles, she's shining. She's established herself, her brand, her name as the baddest chick in bare knuckle fighting. I think that suits her better. And I think more male fighters are going to find that to be the same reason.
Oh, definitely. You've got guys like Chris Lytle who came in, and Chris said, man, this is something I've been looking for all my life, and he loves it, and he shines at it too. So, but then again, we're bringing up some young guys who you probably never heard their names before, but still they have that bare knuckle mentality, and they love the sport. Almost, Scottie, every one of the fighters now that I've talked to through three of the fights, without exception, every one of them said they want to come back and they want to do it more. So we definitely hit a nerve with what I would call the hardcore fighter.
Outstanding. I totally understand what you're saying. I recognize the names. I followed the Joey Beltrans, the Joe Riggs, who you just mentioned, Didn't Travis Luter come over there or not? Not yet, huh?
Travis?
Yes.
Travis who?
Travis Luter?
No.
Okay.
No.
And I saw mostly male fighters that I'm familiar with, but not so much the female fighters. I guess they're trying to basically make the decision to come over and see if that's what they want to do.
I'll tell you what, we've had a couple great ones so far. I mean, we had naturally Beck's fight with Britton Hart was phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, a split decision. You couldn't ask for a better fight than that. And then on this last card, we had Christine Ferreira, and boy, did she look good in our first round KO. You know, and I think you're going to see more and more. We're going to try to have a lady fight on every card. I mean, they're phenomenal.
So explain this. Is it a tournament base, or are you going to have just a night of fighting and whoever's the winner, you know, they get the belt, so to speak, somewhat like the UFC and Bellator?
It's going to be a mix of both. We've had the heavyweight tournament. We just ended that with A.J. Adams winning that. And now we got the lightweight. We're going to the semifinals on the lightweight tournament.
Okay, and that was a shocker there,
we'll
Mr.
keep
Grossman.
having weight divisions where we will have tournaments, right?
Okay, y'all just trying to build up the divisions before you start. Okay, understood.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Could you explain the difference in bare knuckles vice MMA and boxing as far as the hand wraps and the kind of rules and the rounds, the minutes to the rounds and so forth?
Sure. Well, first of all, the hands, you're allowed hand wraps only about halfway down your hand. It's got to be at least 2 inches from your knuckles, so the knuckles are wide open, so the wrist can be wrapped.
Okay.
All right? That's the main difference there. When the fighters come together in the middle of the ring, they toe the line. And I don't know if you got a good chance to look at the canvas, but there's lines they come up to. They're about 1.5 feet apart, and then they say knuckle up. And, you know, you're 1.5 feet apart. You don't have to run across the ring and start dancing. They start knuckling up.
True.
Rounds, a difference in the regular boxing, you can clinch and hit. You can do a little bit of the dirty boxing. That's okay. The ref doesn't see any action in a few seconds. He's going to break it.
Mm-hmm.
Rounds are all, right now the fights are all 5 rounds, 2-minute rounds, which, you know, makes it a lot more action in 2 minutes.
Yes.
The fighters know, hey, I can't dance around a lot here. If I'm going to score some points, I got to do it hard now.
And I see that initially you all made a difference with Bobby Gunn, being that he's more experienced, and you had him going like 7 rounds. Why was that the case? I know he's an experienced boxer. I know a lot about Bobby Gunn and, you know, his history in combat sports. And he's undefeated in bare knuckles, right?
72-0.
And he's been in there in boxing with the likes of James Lights Out Tony, Roy Jones Jr. I mean, he's been in there with some heavy hitters in the boxing game.
Oh, yeah. He's faced the best. And one of the things about Bobby, besides being probably one of the nicest men in the sport I've ever met in my life, is he's one of the smartest fighters that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's not, as you know, he's not a big guy for heavyweight. Now he's actually down to light heavyweight. And but he's just that intelligent, what he does.
Why do you think he excelled at bare knuckles with a high IQ in this particular genre of combat sports than he did in the boxing arena?
Well, it's a different mentality in there. For one thing, you know, you got to watch how you hit a guy. If you're bare knuckled, you hit a guy in the top of the head with all your might, like you would with a boxing glove, you're going to end up with a broken hand. Mm-hmm. If you're going to hit the guy in the jaw, then it's okay to give it everything you got. But you've got to not only got to worry about knocking your opponent out, you got to worry about keeping your hands there so you can finish the fight.
Is that something you all deal with constantly as far as people who get acclimated to the bare knuckles, you know, injuring their hands and not being able to return to fight, being medically suspended?
No, we've had, in the 3 fights we've had so far, we have less fighters going to the hospital after our fights than your typical regional MMA event. We've had, naturally, there's some cuts and there's stitches, there's a lot of blood, but what you have generally is we've had, I think, an average of 1 fighter per card where there was a broken hand in the bone, you know, broken bone in the hand.
Okay.
You know, nothing extraordinary, but again, that's a learning process for some of the fighters.
At this point in time, Mr. Goldsmith, what's a turnaround for the shows to give the fighters time to heal if they're the same ones who just finished? What's the turnaround? Is it like 4 weeks?
Well, It's going to be more than that, I would think. I mean, right now we're still building up, so we're looking at 9 to 10 fights next year, which is a big jump from where we're at this year. We just finished our third one. But a typical fighter for this, you're not always going to turn them to the very next card. You're going to get fresh faces, let them have a chance to heal up, I would imagine, then bring them back maybe the following card, especially if we're going 9 or 10 cards next year.
All right.
And we are going international.
Oh, you're going international. Outstanding.
Definitely.
So what would be the first drop-off? What are we going to see? You all in Japan, where we've seen fights like this before, or what's going to be the first drop-off?
I don't think you'll see that right away, but what we're looking for first would probably be, we're looking right now, February, the 1st of February, in Mexico. USA versus Mexico would be the name of that card, more or less.
And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a boatload of probably Mexican fighters, because they have tough pockets over there dealing with boxers and everything. Do you see them gravitating to the bare knuckle scene?
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm. We've had many requests already from that area.
Okay, that's outstanding. And one thing I've seen, being that you have a blend of boxers and UFC and MMA fighters that's coming over there, who has basically presented interest to you that we might not know about right now in that particular genre, from MMA and so forth, from the Bellator, UFC, that might be a popular name?
There's really no names that I can give out right now until things are signed with fighters, but you know who's already come over from there. One name that was going to be on this card but did not make it, I'm sure will be on the next one, is Leonard Garcia.
Oh, yeah.
Leonard.
Oh, yeah.
He's a hell of a fighter, and I love watching him when he's in the UFC. So, we've had, 8 or 9 of them, at least, from the UFC already.
Yeah, Leonard Garcia used to go full-blown. He either go all or nothing.
For bare knuckle.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a very good show having Leonard Garcia over there. He used to go all out, man. Balls to the wall and get it done. Look forward to seeing him in there. So, when is going to be the next show? My last question: when is going to be the next show for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship? When is going to be the next showing?
Well, to my knowledge, the next one's looking like February 2nd. Something could always happen where something could come up quicker than that, and that would be the Mexican card. We're looking at possibility of Cancun on February 2nd.
All right. I had the opportunity of interviewing Abdiel Velasquez before he actually stepped in the cage, and he performed devastating.
What a kid, man.
Yeah, he had a devastating knockout, which was great. It was good to see him go in there and get the win. That was his first bout, right? In bare knuckles?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Definitely not his last. I met with him after the fight. We had a little after party and stuff, and he's definitely sold. He will be back.
Outstanding. That's good news. If you have a fighter that's 14-3 or whatever in MMA, when they transition over to bare knuckles, do they come in there with an 0-0 record?
Yes, they come in 0-0.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's a whole different sport.
They mentioned during the introductions, they're going to mention their MMA background, their Muay Thai background, whatever. But the only thing that counts is the bare knuckle record.
All right.
For start scratch.
Hey, Mr. Goldsmith. Hey, I thank you very much for tuning in to World Combat Sports. Hopefully, I'm able to actually drop through to a bare knuckle, tournament one time, and actually see it firsthand. I haven't been there, but I was able to tune in to the Joey Beltran, and I think his name was who did he fight? Joe.
Tony Lopez.
Yeah, Tony Lopez. It was absolutely a phenomenal fight.
That was the fight of at least a decade for me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, nobody in that stadium sat down for that.
Oh yeah, and Joey Beltran didn't shake hands at the end. That just goes to show the history between them two. They said, "I ain't shaking your hand," and it was just common respect. But they've been there, done that before, and they put on a phenomenal show. It was outstanding to see.
That was a freaking war. Yep.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Goldsmith, for tuning in, and I hope to speak to more of your fighters that's transitioning over from MMA and boxing over to bare knuckles, and to give them on here for an interview. And I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll get you to one of the fights there soon, Scottie.
Absolutely, Mr. Goldsmith. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Salute to you.
Salute to you, brother. Take care.
All right, take it easy.